So this past weekend, we had the Seoul Queer Culture Festival, their version of the Pride parades that, ravage American cities during this Pride month in June. Is just disgusting and terrible to behold. This is what it looked like. Here's a video that we have for the Seoul Queer Pride Parade in 2026. So you see all these flags. Gay flags, trans flags, intersectional pride flags. Yeah, it's the usual, right? It's the usual. You see a lot of foreigners there. See a lot of flags. Just advocate for the most degenerate stuff. And yeah, right here, like you have these people in their dog masks because it's just a fetish. It's just a sexual fetish. The entire movement, the gay movement, the LGBTQ movement, it is just a sexual fetish of people wanting to have their kinks be public wherever they go, whenever they go, and have people affirm and celebrate their degenerate lifestyles. And obviously, it's all, like we say all the time, it's just a rejection of Christianity and hatred of Christianity. Look at these people just absolutely blaspheming Christ. Yeah, it's just I'm just so it's just that's what it is. Like we have some additional footage of the Pride Parade that we can show you right here. This is from the Korean Herald. It's not pulling up for some reason. Don't know why it's not pulling up. All right, well, we can skip this part, but we can show you a photo. Yeah. And they just look typical, right? It's just a woman with the shaved heads and dyeing their hair all sorts of obnoxious colors like pink and blue. Do we have other photos? Okay, right here too. I think this is kind of important to mention. Monks tie rainbow bracelets. Couples hold babies and share 100-day rice cakes. So there's a trend right now of young people going back to Buddhism. It's not as prevalent as people on the internet say, but there is a return to religion in Korea in the same way there's a return to religion in America. Now people are returning to Christianity in America. But there's like a good portion, I would say, of the next generation of Gen Z and millennials going back to Buddhism. And Buddhists are trying to make it hip and cool to be Buddhist. They're holding raves in front of Buddhist temples and, tapping into modern culture phenomena. But this is why the answer for Korea is nationalist. It is Korea first. It is embracing your Korean heritage, but it is also distinctly Christian. And why I say that is because things like Buddhism has been a part of Korean culture and history for many, many years. Obviously, Confucianism was the dominant religion in the Joseon dynasty, and before that was Buddhism in the Goryeo dynasty. But Buddhists and Buddhism will not save Korea. It won't. Because they have no moral foundation. It is like very Gnostic in nature. But it is these Buddhists who are going out, trying to reach the young generation and the next generation and handing out rainbow bracelets and being all pro LGBTQ. The answer has to be Christ. And it always will be Christ because Christ is the firm foundation in Christianity objectively and so firmly is against these destructive lifestyles and these abominations that lead you to hell and also destroy your life, destroy your family, destroy your children. Christianity has to be the way forward for the Korean. It was the path forward for Korean liberation during the Japanese colonial era. It was the way forward for Korean resilience and strength, especially during a time of poverty. That's why in Korea you have more churches than convenience stores in Korea. That's how prominent Christianity is and how important it was for the fabric of building what is now known as modern-day Korea. It has to be Christianity. That's why these people mock Christianity all the time. We have a picture right here of this person. Of course, we have these furries. It's just okay, yeah, furries. You have the furries, of course, because they're trying to normalize what you call as zoophilia, right? But yeah, zoophilia. It's just so disgusting. I'm just sick of it. It's really disgusting. Like, I do not recommend at all to the average person listening to this broadcast to look into the zoophilic community online. But I remember it was like a few years ago. I saw someone then pop up on my newsfeed because it was like really popular at the time. It was like a point of internet contention and discourse. And yeah, just the things that they're saying about having and conducting sexual acts with their dogs, with a cow. I mean, it's so disgusting. And they have flags for this. Don't look it up, but I don't know. If you want to be informed, I guess by all means, but they have flags for all of their fetishes for their specific animals. It's so disgusting. It is so disgusting. And I know that furrydom and the furries used to be a harmless, we just want to dress up as anthropomorphic animals. I get that. Because there's like, I see these Christian furries who follow me too, and I'm not going to counter signal you. I'm not going to denounce you, but I'm like, why are you a furry as a Christian? It's kind of strange to me. I'm not going to impart any ill will against you, but of course, it's become a symbol of zoophilia, which is just bestiality. And we warned about this, by the way. We say if you accept all different forms and alternate forms of sexuality other than what is traditionally known as marriage, man and a woman in a covenant marriage to have children, that is the whole purpose of marriage, really. We said, hey, it's going to lead to this. Oh, you're just fear-mongering. You're just homophobic. Now we're in a place where every single degenerate sexual lifestyle is accepted in this community. The slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy. It's a reality. The slippery slope, hello, of course it is. If you remove the guardrails and the fences that kept you and your society in order, of course, everyone's just going to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and the most unthinkable, revolting actions and behaviors will come to light and be normalized in society. But like I was saying, they just hate Christianity. Look at this sign. This person, I don't know what this person is. It's definitely a dude, but I don't know what they identify as. They spray painted their whole body as pink. And they have this cross that says F Christian nationalism. And in Korean, it says pagan 우월주의 종교를 물러가라. So in English, that means get the white chauvinistic religion out. Like, get out this white chauvinistic religion. And the irony of that, I have a post where I outline it. I'll just read it. I'll just read my post. The irony of this post, okay, is that all the LGBTQ identities that are prevalent, and again, they're not prevalent. They're so niche. Most Koreans hate this stuff. Whether you're left or right, they hate this stuff in Korea. Each one of their LGBTQ identities is imported Western degeneracy. So queer in Korean is queer. Lesbian is lesbian, gay is gay, transgender is transgender, and non-binary is non-binary. And so they're all English loan words. Korean never had any words in their vernacular or vocabulary to describe LGBTQ identities and categories until the 20th century because they were so foreign and unthinkable for most of Korean history. Of course, they had words where they described same-sex behavior. But that's it. That's all they had because, of course, we had degeneracy. There's nothing new under the sun. You had degenerate lifestyles in the past. But it was so foreign and unthinkable to Korean culture and Korean history that they never had any words to describe a LGBTQ identity. Like, no one was actually, you're gay or you're a transgender. Like, that wasn't a thing. And so all the current LGBTQIA, LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these terms in Korea are modern borrowings that enter Korean through contact with Western sexological concepts. And that all proves to show that these degenerates, that person who's holding up a sign, a cross, just blaspheming Christ, saying F Christian nationalism, 백인 종교 물러가라, 나가라, They don't hate Western influence. They just hate goodness, truth, and order. They hate beauty. They hate all that which is good, which is basically Christianity. They just hate Christianity. And they import and adopt the most diseased, dysfunctional parts of the West today. And there's really nothing you can say except that it's truly demonic. It really is demonic. There's no other way to describe it. Like, these people hate Christ so much that they see where even in Korean society, where not the majority of Koreans are Christian. There's a lot of Christians in Korea, but the majority are not. Like 30% of Koreans are Christian. But the majority do not like this lifestyle. They do not like the LGBTQ. They're so against it because it's so foreign to them and it's so disordered. Everyone knows this. But the reason why they say that, oh, you're only against it because it's Western influence, it's the white man's religion, Christianity coming and robbing your minds, brainwashing you. The only reason why they say that is because they hate the truth. They hate Christ, who is the Logos, who is the originator of all things logic, reason, and truth. They hate the one true God. They hate the transcendent moral order that is, set up and instituted by God for all of humanity. They hate that. They hate that. They hate God, the one true God. They hate him. Everything that they do on the streets of Seoul during their queer parade, trying to normalize and have every single person bow down for their degenerate lifestyles, that is all just a rejection of Christ, a rebellion against God. That's all it is. It's really that simple. They want to indulge their sinful lifestyles. They hate when people tell them no. And they just literally reject the one and true God. They hate God. They hate Jesus Christ. That's what it is. That's all it boils down to. So don't tell me you hate Western influence because you actually embrace Western influence. Just the worst parts of it. All of this stuff about the LGBTQ and these ideas of non-binary and transgenderism, such preposterous ideas, completely unthinkable. Yeah, they're all imported from the West. Yes, they are. And this is where Koreans need to get really, really objective with understanding the dynamics of Western influence in Korean society. The right wing in Korea is very unapologetically pro-America. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong to be pro-America. We want to be pro-America in Korea. Like I said previously on this episode, I love America. But when America is the number one importer of LGBTQ and racial consciousness and critical race theory into your country, why would you celebrate American influence? Like, you shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, American influence is, by and large, blanket slate, a good thing for Korea. Because it's not. Clearly it's not. These are all imported ideas from the West. Koreans had no conception of this until very recently. That's why now they're having like these non-binary, gender non-conforming K-pop groups to appeal to a global audience in Korea. It is absolute garbage. Korea is adopting this. Now, again, most Koreans don't accept this. But as you normalize this throughout society, yeah, like people will eventually be like, okay, yeah, whatever. You saw this in America. Gay marriage, which is not marriage, it's just same-sex union, if you want to call it that. That was largely, before Obergefell in 2015, most Americans didn't approve of it. Now, most Americans do. Because it's been so normalized throughout society in America. We shouldn't want that in Korea. So, American influence, do we want that in Korea? It depends on what that influence is. And if we're importing the worst parts and the most diseased, dysfunctional, disordered parts of American influence into Korean society, that's not something we should want. And by the way, all of this is not organically funded by Korean companies or Koreans themselves. This is all funded by foreign NGOs, Western NGOs, globalist NGOs. And so a lot of people say it's the Jews behind it. Yeah, there's a lot of secular Jews behind it, of course. This is why a lot of right-wingers also in Korea also need to stop being so blindly pro-Israel just because they're a democracy. No, like, they tout that they have the largest pride parade in Asia and in the Middle East in Tel Aviv every year. Like, why? Like, what? I I don't know. As a Christian, as a Korean American, as an American citizen, I don't like any of that. So why are we pro-Israel? And why are we just so unapologetically pro-Jew? That makes no sense to me. But it really is just foreign influence. The foreign influence is what's driving the queerness and the LGBTQ in Korea. Really, that's what it is. It's the introduction of all this nonsense ideology into Korea. And yes, by and large, it's very fringe. It's interesting because a lot of the feminists in America are pro-trans, which everyone always points out the hypocrisy, right? How can you be a feminist but also advocate for men taking over your spaces? Yeah, it's stupid. But in Korea, actually, most of the hardcore feminists, the 4B feminists, are like, what do they call them? TERFs. Trans exclusionary radical feminists. So they hate the trans stuff. So the radical left wing in Korea hates the trans stuff, and then the right wing hates the trans stuff and the LGBTQ stuff. So then where is this coming from? Well, it's like a different faction. That's why you can't neatly chart American politics and culture war into Korean politics and culture war. But by and large, this is niche. This is only really promoted by the Jinbodang, the progressives in Korea. But the problem is the DPK, which is the largest party in Korea with the most National Assembly seats, and that is the party of current President Lee Jae-myung. Yeah, they are sympathetic to this. They're not completely pro-LGBTQ like the Democratic Party is in America, but they're sympathetic to this, which is why they're trying to pass the anti-discrimination law, which makes displays of being against alternate lifestyles illegal, and you will be punished, penalized, or prosecuted for it, which is absurd, absolute absurdity. And of course, even with all that degeneracy, you had the counter-protests. So here's footage of a lot of young Korean female patriots marching against the LGBTQ. Look at that, in their feminine skirts, holding guns. Well, not actual guns, right? And they're marching with Christian symbolism. They're also dancing right here on top of a truck. Yeah, so they say that sign says 동성애는 죄악. So it's like the worst. Like homosexuality is the worst. And obviously in English they say no same-sex marriage. 하나님의 심판. So God's judgment be upon you. All that stuff. And I think that's good. That's all good. And this is like an objective win for Korea and Koreans. The Korean right-wingers who object to and are against the normalization of LGBTQ in society. Because optics matter. Like, it's all an optics war when it comes to this kind of stuff to sway public opinion. But, like, for example, this sign, it says right here in Korean, 한국 동성애로 망한다. I'm so bad at reading it sideways. And it says, Korea, through homosexuality and same-sex marriage, it will be destroyed. And that's so true. That is an objective fact. Objective fact. Because Korea right now has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. People aren't getting married and having children. And so if you want to save Korea and keep Korea alive and have Korea exist for next generations, yeah, you cannot normalize this. This is also why Korea permitting abortion right now is utter insanity. Why would you permit abortion? And why would you allow and try to normalize same-sex attraction, sodomy, transgenderism, when your birth rates are in the gutter? You got to increase those birth rates. How do you increase birth rates? It is only by normal marriage, normal male-female dimorphic sexual relations that you create a child. That is not only how God created the world, that is just how things have been for all of human history. Male, female, coming together to have children. That's why this sign right here, which is great. This is one of the most powerful signs right here. 엄마 아빠가 사랑해서 나를 낳았어요. So, 엄마 아빠, mom, dad, through their love, I came to life. Right? Like I was born. That's the messaging that Korea needs. Because why? it is not merely a religious and Christian argument, but if you're trying to sway like the entirety of Korea, then you have to also make anthropological arguments. Because people all understand this, that it is within a healthy family that children thrive. A mother, father. Because all of us, we all come from one mom and one dad. And so to really hammer that messaging, especially in Korean, and especially message of love, like truly it's the love of a father and a mother that births children and gives new life. That is the messaging that we need. It is through the love of my father and my mother that I've been given the gift of life. That is the messaging that needs to happen. We also need this kind of messaging. 한국에서 퀴어 동성애 교육 웬만일까? 가정에서 미리미리. So it says in Korean, why is it in schools? Like in schools, they're teaching queer and same-sex attraction and homosexuality? What the heck? Why are they teaching that? Okay, then we have to, in our own families, protect them and teach them the proper view of sexuality. And that's what it's saying. So you have to prepare in advance at home. And see, 223,000 likes, like a lot of Koreans agree with the sentiment. Teach your children, protect your children at home from this garbage. And that's why you don't see such gratuitous displays in Korea of queerness and the LGBTQ like you see in America, where in America you have people walking around naked at pride parades in front of children and conducting very lewd, disgusting sexual acts in front of children. Yeah, you don't see that in Korea. You would literally be locked up forever. But the thing is, again, it all starts here. It all starts here. Korea culturally, with this kind of cultural degeneracy and these social contagions, they're always like 10, 15 years behind America. And then now, so 10 years ago, America was largely, they didn't accept this stuff. Now, pride parades with adults walking around naked and conducting lewd acts in front of children, that's normalized now. And if you say anything, you're a hateful person, you get fired from your job. So Koreans have to be vigilant. They have to be vigilant. And they need to be really, really, really like on top of their game and not be okay. Just because it's fringe right now, you cannot accept it. You cannot just dismiss it as fringe, because the way that these things spread throughout society is truly like a wildfire. And in an instant, it becomes normalized. So from every single level of society, whether it's institutional power in politics, whether it's culturally, we have to block this, and we have to do all that we can in Korea to block this. Now, and stop its spread. Now, I do want to touch on this sign right here. It says, homosexuality is sin, return to Jesus. Now, a lot of people in Korea, a lot of the super pro-LGBTQ people, they take this and they actually make fun of it. So in Korean, it says right here, this caption, 동성애는 신이다. So shin sounds like sin, right? Shin in Korean is God. It means God. And it says also, 재수 씨에게 돌아와라. So it's like basically the wife of your younger brother is 재수 씨. So it's like, oh yeah, like sister-in-law, return to sister-in-law. Huh, it's so funny. And they mock it. And I'm not saying rightfully so, like you should never mock Christ no matter what language it's in. But this is actually the problem optically of Koreans using English to advocate for traditional marriage and traditional sexual relations. And why I say that is because, yeah, like they can mock it. You give ammo to enemies to not only mock what you're saying, to say like homosexuality is God, ha ha ha. And they can't come up with new slogans to galvanize and mobilize their base, but also it gives credence to the claim of leftists in Korea and pro-LGBTQ activists and progressives that Christianity is only merely a Western import, and as Koreans, we should reject foreign influence. Like you give credence to that argument, which you shouldn't. You shouldn't. I know that the left, our enemies, will lie about us no matter what, but you shouldn't give credence and ammo to the enemy unintentionally. As a Korean, you need to be fighting against LGBTQ as a Korean. Like, not using English. You don't need to use English. Use Korean, fight as a Korean, not as, like, don't use English. There's no need to use English. No need to use English. And so optically, I think that a lot of Korean right-wingers can win. You saw those young women in their skirts, very feminine, dancing and saying, yeah, like we are against this. True love is between, in terms of sexuality, like between man and woman in marriage. That is a good thing. That is how we have society flourish because the family is the building block of society. All of that messaging, great. That's what we need. But you do not need to say it in English. Just say it in Korean. Don't give your enemy ammo to make fun of you intentionally. Like, don't be sloppy. Like with optics, you have to be sharp. You have to be as wise as a serpent and as innocent as a dove. And here, right here, you have, this is just a proof that it's all foreign funded. This is all foreign funded. The British Embassy Seoul is proud and delighted once again to operate a booth at the Seoul Queer Festival alongside Australian Embassy and New Zealand Embassy, sharing our spirit of solidarity. UK stands with LGBT+. And we will continue to work toward a society where dignity, equality, and human rights are enjoyed without discrimination in Korea and the UK and around the world. Leftists don't hate imperialism. They keep saying, oh yeah, you colonizer, when they're trying to insult white people. You colonizer. We hate imperialism. No, you don't. You don't hate imperialism. You just like your own form of imperialism. This is why right-wingers need to stop adopting their frame. In the same way, you need to stop saying same-sex marriage because it's not marriage. Stop adopting their frame. Stop adopting their frame when it comes to imperialism because they don't hate imperialism. They don't hate colonialism. They don't hate conquest. They actually love it when it's done by their side. Do not do it. Do not allow for this imperialistic nonsense of the LGBTQ. Do not allow for LGBTQ imperialism to proliferate throughout Korean society. Korean patriots, you must rise up. And arguably, I am so sorry to say this. This might ruffle some feathers. The democracy protests in Korea, that's all good. Because what happened with the recent elections, it is really, really like a blunder. It is a mismanagement. It is a failure of epic proportions. That is all true. But that same energy you need to be directing against this Pride Parade. You need to be directing it against this because why? Fundamentally, more important than your political system is the family. Preserving the family will always be infinitely more important than whatever political system your country has. I'm not saying it's unimportant because politics creates policies which affect people. And so how we can flourish in a society with families, it is all governed by politics. Sure. Yes, that's all true. But that's why you need to be on the front lines against the LGBTQ to advocate for pro-family policies and governance and orientation in society. We need to be a pro-family movement in Korea. There needs to be a pro-family movement in Korea that is so and unapologetically against the LGBTQ and the excesses of it because it is wickedly evil. And it completely destroys families. Like, that is the objective. Like, that has to be the first and foremost primary political objective. It is for flourishing families and communities. That is the objective. That really has to be the objective, no matter what. Why? Because economies ebb and flow. Culture ebbs and flows. Everything changes, and especially our rapid-paced society. But what stays constant always is, one, the word of God. But when you're talking about politically, in the body politic, it is the family. Like, that will always stay constant, no matter what jobs you have, whether you move from one city to another city, whether you move from one career to another career, whether this politician gets into office and another politician gets in office, whether this law is passed, that law is passed, it'll all change. But what doesn't change is your family. Your family will always be your family no matter what. We need to emphasize that. And that needs to be a sole priority. And if the LGBTQ lobby and the foreign influence and these activists take power in Korean society, like, there really is no turning back. You're going to turn into what America and Europe has become, which is objectively a cesspool. And it's going to be really hard crawling back. Right now, in a place where Korea, the majority of Koreans do not like the LGBTQ, do not accept of it, you must tap into that right now and stop the spread of it right now. Now, speaking of foreign influence, I think this tweet, actually, this is something that Koreans need to understand. He said in Korean, on the way home, a middle-aged or older man saw my t-shirt and said, so you're saying same sex is good? if it's homosexuality, then this kid, meaning me, wouldn't have been born, right? He went on to say that he gave birth to me and got married. And even then, he couldn't wrap his head around it. And when I said I did it in America, don't mess with me, he backed off. The all-purpose spell, I did it in America. Now, translation's wrong. Obviously, he's saying that, oh, I got this shirt in America. And then he backed off because of the spell, the one phrase, oh, I did it in America, don't mess with me. This is where right-wingers in Korea need to reclaim their sense of sovereignty and their identity as a Korean and not just see everything that America does or everything that America exports into Korea as inherently good. You saw that. He's like, you can't have children with LGBTQ lifestyles because that is disordered and it's only between man and woman you can have children. And we want every child to have a mother and a father. That's why being an orphan is really, it's terrible and it's an unfortunate circumstance because we all come from one mother, one father. We belong to that, our mother and father. So yeah, well, why are you saying that it's good? Oh, I got the shirt in America. Oh, sorry. I'm quiet. Let me back off now. The right wing in Korea needs to move away from their blind, I guess, elevation of America on a pedestal. Oh, don't you love America? Yes, I love America. But what I'm saying is that you have to understand America in its proper context and love America for what it traditionally stood for and what it should stand for, not what foreign subversives and liberals say it stands for. But just because it's America, because, oh, I got this shirt in America. Oh, yeah, they're like, oh, okay, I'm back off. No, you cannot. Just because it's made in America, just because you got it in America, just because it comes from America, doesn't make it inherently good. It doesn't hold and it shouldn't hold power over you as a Korean. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. So just because America does it doesn't make it inherently good. Please, the Korean right wing needs to understand this. They need to understand this. That number one, America's not going to come and save you, Korea. I'm sorry. They're not going to come in and swoop your president out like they did in Venezuela. They're not going to engage in regime change in South Korea. Why would they do that? They're not going to do a joint U.S. Korean investigation into election fraud. I'm sorry, they're not. They really won't. Why? Because the current administration in Korea is, yes, they are against America, but they're not like North Korea against America. But they are, yes, they are against America in American interest. Marco Rubio said himself that they're not going to intervene. The Secretary of State in America said, we will not intervene in the interest of a democracy, South Korea. The people will vote for their interest. And you're going to have pro-America presidents. You're going to have a little more anti-America presidents, but we'll work with them. They're not going to go in. And it's deeply unpopular now among Americans to intervene in foreign affairs. Because why? What is Trump's motto? Make America great again, but America first. America first. Americans are focused on American issues first and foremost now. And that is the pulse, both left and right, but definitely on the right. So Koreans need to understand, okay, our goal should not be just to be like America and model everything America does, per se, but it is to be sovereign as your own country, proud, standing on your own 2 feet. That needs to be the goal of Korean politics, especially when you're talking about culturally. And so last thing, a few things I want to talk about right here. There is this, not this politician, for the next tweet, please. The lesbian. There's this lesbian girl who was at the protest, and she's a cute looking girl. Like I'm not gonna say she's ugly and dysgenic or anything like that. But look at this photo. So this is a girl who was at the queer parade, and this Korean lesbian's quote unquote girlfriend. What do you notice? You notice that they present themselves masculine, short hair, wearing a button-up shirt that only men wear. It's clearly a male button-up shirt. This is why I say lesbianism isn't actually real. Like, it isn't. Most lesbians, I don't know, maybe I'll get flack for this, but most lesbians are just like hurting girls and hurting women who have daddy issues and trauma from men. Lesbianism isn't real. because they say they reject gender roles. Oh, we're going to reject the patriarchy, but they can't be in a relationship without gender roles. They can't be in a relationship without one of the people in the relationship acting like the man and one of the people acting like the woman. They reject men, lesbians reject men, but they still need one to act like the man in the relationship. So you really cannot escape sexual dimorphism and pair bonding instincts. Nature wins every time. Seriously, you cannot escape the dimorphic nature of human beings. We are inherently male and female. That desire is intrinsic in all of us. We all look for that. That's why even in same-sex relationships like this, you have one who is more masculine and one who is more feminine. Anyone can look at this picture and conclude, okay, the woman on the left is the masculine one. The woman on the right is the feminine one. You can even see it in their behavior. The one who's taking the picture in the selfie, who typically does that in the relationship, it's the girl. And who usually just goes along for the selfie and taking the pictures, it's the guy. This is just the male-female dynamics in any romantic or sexual relationship. It is so inherent and ingrained in who we are that even in these alternate lifestyles, they can't escape it. They can't. That being said, that's why it's so disordered, because it's not in the proper context. But they always do this. You see all those trans couples too online where it's like a trans woman and then a trans man, and they come together and they're like, oh yeah, we're bisexual or something. It's like, no, you're straight. You just like the other gender, although they identify with the other gender. Very strange stuff. Very disordered stuff. But yeah, you cannot escape human nature because God created us as dimorphic beings to be pair bonded, male, female. Why? Because that is the only context by which we can create new life. Sexual relations, what is the end goal? I'll end with this for this segment. The end goal of sexual relations between male and female is procreation. It is not personal pleasure. Now, intimacy is a goal, for sure. That is a function of sex, but it is ultimately for procreation. That is the function of sexual relations. It is so that you can have people and new life, so that you can have the continuation of society and the human race and your nation. That is the function of it. So if we continuously try to remove the understanding that, hey, when you get married and you have sex, all sorts of sexual relations exist for creating children. That is the actual natural byproduct and the purpose and goal of it. Then you get sexual dysfunction. You get people sleeping outside of marriage, not waiting until marriage. You have not only that, but also, right, LGBTQIA, ABCD, EFG lifestyles. That's what it is. So we have to get back to that core principle. And I know it's a little uncomfortable because a lot of Koreans don't like talking about it in public, but you must get back to that core principle through education, through information and programming, that marriage, man, woman, that's it. Sexual relations is for conceiving and birthing new life. That's what it's for. And we need to get back to that. And I believe when you get back to that, I think Koreans will be very, very, very sympathetic to it. And we'll be able to, I guess, what is it? Get out. 물러가라! We can chase out the foreign invaders and the insane leftist influence that is wreaking havoc throughout Korean society through the LGBTQ. All that being said, like I said, it is fringe. A lot of the people love the counter-protesters that we showed you, but Koreans need to put their foot down now, not be ashamed or afraid of being canceled. And if you want to save your civilization, the number one priority has to be saving and preserving the institution of the family. And as a conservative, if you're a conservative, if you don't conserve the family, then there's really, I don't know what else you're conserving. Seriously. That has to be the priority.